The grocery store erupted into chaos. A body slammed against a shelf, sending canned goods cascading to the floor. Another attacker stumbled backward, clutching his ribs after a devastating strike. The last thug, his face already bruised and bloodied, wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, breathing heavily. His eyes darted around the store, searching for an escape, but there was none. The Black MMA fighter stood firm in the center of the aisle, his fists still raised, his breath steady. The sleeves of his hoodie were torn, his knuckles raw. He had stepped in to stop these bullies from harassing a helpless single mother, and now, they were the ones sprawled out on the cold tile floor, groaning in pain. "You should have walked away," the fighter muttered, his voice even controlled. The thug in front of him let out a nervous chuckle, spitting blood onto the tile. "Oh, you're gonna regret this, man. You don't know who you just messed with." A terrified whimper broke the silence. The mother, clutching her young son, looked at the fighter with wide, grateful eyes. Her son, no older than 6, stared up at him with a mixture of awe and fear. The fighter met their gaze and gave a reassuring nod. But before he could say a word, the sharp wail of police sirens tore through the moment. The smirk returned to the thug's battered face. "Oh yeah, now you're in for it." The front doors of the grocery store burst open. A group of police officers stormed inside, hands hovering over their holsters. The lead officer, a stocky man with a cocky smirk and an authoritative stance, pointed straight at the fighter. "On the ground. Now, hands where I can see him." The MMA fighter didn't move. His fists remained clenched, his jaw tight. He had fought in cages, in arenas packed with screaming fans. He had stared down opponents trained to kill. But this was different. This was a fight he had been dragged into his entire life. "I said get on the ground," the officer barked, stepping closer. The other officers followed, hands twitching near their weapons. The mother stepped forward, her voice desperate. "Wait, he didn't do anything wrong. He was just—" "Ma'am, step back," one officer cut her off, his voice sharp, dismissive. She clutched her son tighter. "But they were harassing me. He was protecting us. I said get down." The lead officer's voice echoed through the store. Shoppers, frozen in fear, watched in silence. Phones were out, people were recording, but it didn't seem to matter. The officer's hand twitched near his gun. The fighter knew how this would play out. He could comply. He could get on his knees, hands behind his head, and let them cuff him like a criminal. Or, his eyes flickered to the thug on the floor, who was now smirking despite his injuries. This was exactly what they wanted. The officer took another step forward, his patience thinning. Last warning. The fighter took a slow, deep breath, forcing himself to stay calm. He raised his hands, palms facing out. "I didn't do anything wrong. I was defending her and her son. Check the security cameras." The officer scoffed. "Yeah, funny how the only people lying on the floor are the ones you defended her from." The downed thug groaned dramatically, clutching his ribs. "He attacked us, man. We were just shopping. Next thing we know, this guy's throwing punches. He's crazy." The mother's eyes widened in horror. "That's a lie," she shouted. "They cornered me. That's enough." The officer's voice cracked like a whip. He nodded to his men. "Cuff him." The fighter's stomach clenched as 2 officers moved in. His instincts screamed at him to resist, to fight back, but he knew that would only make things worse. As they grabbed his wrists, one officer muttered under his breath, "Big tough guy, huh? Let's see how tough you are in a cell." The cold metal of the handcuffs snapped around his wrists. And just as they started to pull him toward the exit, another voice cut through the store, deep, authoritative, and laced with urgency. "Wait, what the hell is going on here?" A tall black man in a crisp suit stepped through the store's entrance. His sharp gaze swept over the scene, the downed thugs, the frightened mother, the young boy, and the fighter being cuffed. The lead officer stiffened. "Just handling a situation, sir." "This man was—" "That man," the newcomer interrupted, pointing at the MMA fighter, "is Malik Carter. Former MMA champion, undefeated in the heavyweight division, and a personal friend of mine." The entire store went silent. The officer's face paled. His mouth opened, then shut, as he processed the situation. The name alone carried weight. Malik Carter wasn't just some random guy. He was a legend in the fighting world, a household name. The suited man stepped closer, his expression unreadable. "So tell me, officer," he continued, his voice dangerously calm, "are you arresting a hero? Or did you just make the biggest mistake of your career?" The officer swallowed hard. The tension in the air was suffocating. Malik Carter, still restrained in cuffs, lifted his head, locking eyes with the man who had the power to change everything. The entire store was silent, tension thick in the air. The lead officer's face drained of color, his grip on Malik Carter's arm loosening ever so slightly. He had heard the name before. Everyone had. Malik wasn't just a fighter, he was a legend. And now, he was standing in handcuffs, eyes locked onto the man who had just walked in. The man in the sharp suit stepped forward, his presence commanding attention. "I asked you a question, officer. Are you arresting a hero? Or did you just make the biggest mistake of your career?" The officer shifted uncomfortably, his arrogance faltering. We had a report of an altercation," he stammered, clearing his throat. "We found this man standing over multiple injured individuals. We were just following protocol." Malik clenched his jaw, his patience wearing thin. "Protocol? You didn't even ask what happened. You just assumed." The suited man's gaze darkened. "Is that true? You didn't even check security footage before deciding he was guilty." One of the younger officers hesitated before muttering. We were going to." The suited man smirked. "Do it now." The lead officer's face twisted in frustration, but he had no choice. He signaled to one of his men. "Go check the tapes. Now!" The officer bolted toward the store's security office while the rest of the force remained still, uncertainty creeping into their rigid stances. Meanwhile, the thug Malik had put down earlier groaned, still cradling his ribs. "This is bullshit," he spat. "That guy attacked us for no reason." The mother, still clutching her son, stepped forward with newfound courage. "That's a lie. They surrounded me. They wouldn't let me leave. He stepped in to help us." The lead officer's jaw tightened as murmurs spread through the crowd. The shoppers were still recording, their phones capturing every detail. If he wasn't careful, this could blow up beyond his control. Minutes passed like hours. Then, the officer who had gone to check the footage returned, his face pale. He whispered something into the lead officer's ear. Whatever he said made the man stiffen before his expression contorted into frustration. "Uncuff him," he snapped. One of the officers hesitated. "But sir," "I said uncuff him. Now!" The handcuffs clicked open, and Malik rolled his shoulders, shaking off the stiffness in his wrists. His eyes remained locked on the lead officer, unflinching. The man in the suit smiled slightly. "That's better." The lead officer's face twisted in frustration, but he forced a stiff nod. "You're free to go." Malik took a deep breath, but just as he turned toward the mother and her son, the thug still on the ground chuckled darkly. "Yeah, you walk away now," he sneered. "But you don't get it, do you? You messed with the wrong people." Malik's expression hardened. "And what people would that be?" The thug's smirk widened, despite the blood smeared across his face. "You'll find out soon enough." A chill ran through Malik's spine, but he didn't let it show. Instead, he turned to the mother. "Are you okay?" She nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "Thank you. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't stepped in." Malik gave her a reassuring nod before looking down at her son. The boy stared up at him with awe. "You're really strong," he said in a small voice. Malik smiled. "Strength isn't about fighting. It's about knowing when to stand up for what's right." The boy nodded solemnly, as if absorbing every word. But even as Malik turned to leave, he couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. Later that night, Malik sat in his car, staring at his phone. The man in the suit, his old friend, Jordan Price, had sent him a message. "Jordan, we need to talk. That guy wasn't bluffing. You might be in serious trouble. Call me." Malik exhaled sharply, gripping the wheel. He had dealt with threats before, both inside and outside the ring. But this felt different. A shadow moved in the corner of his vision. Instinct kicked in, and he turned sharply, just in time to see a dark figure disappearing into the alley across the street. Someone was watching him. Malik's heart pounded as he stared into the darkness where the shadow had disappeared. Every instinct in his body told him he was being watched. He wasn't the type to scare easy. Years of fighting had sharpened his senses to pick up on even the subtlest threats. This wasn't paranoia. Someone was out there. He exhaled slowly, rolling his shoulders. If they wanted to come at him, he was ready. His phone buzzed again. "Jordan, Malik. Pick up. You don't want to ignore this." Malik hesitated, then swiped to call Jordan back. The phone barely rang before his old friend answered. "Malik, listen to me. That guy you took down at the store? He's connected. And not the small-time kind. You might have just started a war." Malik's grip tightened around the steering wheel. "What are you talking about?" He was just some street punk trying to intimidate a mother and her kid. "I handled it." Jordan sighed. That punk is Danny Ricci's younger brother. Malik's stomach twisted. He had heard the name before. Danny Ricci wasn't just some two-bit thug. He was one of the most ruthless enforcers for the Southside Syndicate, a crime family known for making people disappear. If his younger brother had gotten humiliated in public, the Ricci family wouldn't take it lightly. So what? Malik said, keeping his voice steady. He had it coming. Yeah, but Ricci doesn't care about that. He cares about respect. And right now, his family looks weak because of you. That means they're coming. Malik ran a hand over his face. Let them. Jordan cursed under his breath. Damn it, Malik. I know you're tough, but this isn't a street fight or an MMA bout. These guys play by different rules. No referees. No second chances. You need to be smart. Malik stared at his reflection in the rearview mirror. He had fought in cages, on the streets, in the military. He had been in life-or-death situations before. But this was different. What do you suggest? Malik finally asked. Lay low, Jordan said. At least for now. Let me see if I can smooth things over. Malik shook his head. Not my style. Damn it, man. Jordan snapped. You got people looking for you right now. You think you can just fight your way out of this? Before Malik could respond, he caught movement from the corner of his eye, headlights creeping toward him from the far end of the street. A black SUV, tinted windows moving slow. Too slow. His gut tightened. Jordan, Malik said, his voice low. I think they already found me. Jordan swore. Get out of there. Now. Malik didn't need to be told twice. He threw the car into drive and peeled out onto the street, the SUV instantly picking up speed behind him. He glanced in the rearview. 2 figures sat in the front, and he had no doubt there were more in the back. They weren't here to talk. The SUV gained on him as he swerved through the empty streets, his mind racing. He needed to lose them before they boxed him in. Then up ahead, construction. A row of barricades blocked off half the road. Perfect. Malik gritted his teeth and floored it, aiming for the tightest gap between 2 barriers. At the last second, he jerked the wheel, squeezing through with barely an inch to spare. The SUV wasn't so lucky. A sickening crunch echoed through the night as the vehicle clipped the barricade, the driver overcorrecting. The SUV skidded sideways, tires screeching before it slammed into a parked car. Malik didn't wait to see the aftermath. He kept going, weaving through back streets until he was sure he wasn't being followed. Only then did he pull into an empty alleyway, killing the engine. His hands were steady, but his pulse was racing. That had been too close. His phone buzzed again. Jordan. Malik answered, breathing hard. Lost them. For now, Jordan said grimly. But this isn't over. Ricci won't stop. Not until he gets what he wants. Malik leaned back against the seat, exhaling. Then I guess I'll have to pay him a visit first. Jordan was silent for a long moment. Malik, that's suicide. Malik's jaw tightened. No, it's strategy. He expects me to run. I won't. Jordan sighed heavily. You're a stubborn bastard. If you're gonna do this, at least don't go alone. Malik smirked. Didn't plan to. A new determination settled in his chest. If Ricci wanted a fight, Malik would bring the war to him first. He just hoped he wasn't already too late. Malik didn't waste any time. If Danny Ricci wanted to come after him, then he wasn't about to sit around and wait for the next ambush. He had spent his whole life moving forward, never running, never backing down. And he sure as hell wasn't about to start now. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number he hadn't called in years. It rang twice before a deep, gravelly voice answered. You must really be in some shit if you're calling me. Malik smirked. Nice to hear your voice too, Dre. Dre Bulldog, Harris had been Malik's sparring partner back in his MMA days. But before that, he had been something much worse, an enforcer for some of the roughest crews in the city. He had gotten out of the life, or at least that's what he always claimed. But Malik knew better. Dre didn't leave the streets. He just learned how to move in the shadows. What do you need? Dre asked, cutting straight to the point. Backup. A pause. Then a chuckle. Didn't think I'd ever hear you say that. Who's dumb enough to come after you? Danny Ricci. Dre's tone instantly darkened. You serious? That man doesn't play, Malik. If you hit his little brother, he's already got a target on your back. You should be skipping town. Not happening, Malik said firmly. I need to find him before he finds me again. You in or not? Dre sighed, then muttered. Meet me at the old boxing gym on 12th. Give me 20. Malik hung up and started the engine. If there was one thing he knew about Dre, it was that he didn't spook easy. If even he thought Ricci was a problem, That meant things were worse than Malik had originally thought. The gym was as rundown as ever. Rusted lockers, flickering overhead lights, the lingering scent of sweat and blood. It had been years since Malik had last stepped foot here, but it still felt like home in a strange way. Dre was waiting for him in the ring, wrapping his hands in tape. The man was built like a brick wall, wide shoulders, tree-trunk arms, and a face that had seen its fair share of fights. "Before we do this," Dre said, "you need to know something. Richie doesn't just want payback. He wants to make an example out of you." "Yeah, I got that impression," Malik said dryly. Dre shook his head. "You don't get it. This ain't just about his little brother. Richie's got bigger plans, and you just embarrassed him in front of the wrong people. He needs to send a message." Malik folded his arms. "Then let's make sure that message goes both ways." Dre let out a low whistle. "You always did have a death wish." "Nah," Malik said. "I just don't like bullies." Dre smirked. "All right then, let's go pay Richie a visit." Finding Richie wasn't hard. He wasn't the type to hide. He didn't have to. He owned half the city's underground scene, and he made sure everyone knew it. They found him at one of his clubs, a high-end spot with a velvet rope entrance and muscle-bound bouncers guarding the door. The kind of place where dangerous people made even more dangerous deals. "This is suicide," Dre muttered as they approached the entrance. "Only if we get caught slipping," Malik replied. The bouncers immediately stepped forward, hands resting on their holsters. "Private event," one of them grunted. "Turn around." Malik didn't stop. He simply met the man's gaze and said, "Tell Richie Malik Carter is here." The bouncer hesitated. He knew the name. Everyone did. He exchanged a look with his partner before nodding and speaking into his earpiece. Seconds later, the door creaked open. "Boss says let him in." Dre let out a low chuckle. "Guess we're VIP now." Malik stepped inside, his eyes scanning the club. It was dimly lit, filled with smoke and the low hum of conversations. A private booth in the back stood out, the kind of place only a man like Richie would sit. And there he was. Danny Richie leaned back in his seat, a glass of whiskey in one hand, his other arm draped casually over the leather booth. He was older than his brother, sharper, more calculated. His suit was crisp, his expression unreadable. "Malik Carter," Richie mused, swirling his drink. "You've got some nerve walking in here. And you've got a bad habit of sending people after me," Malik shot back. Richie smirked. "You humiliated my brother. In front of a crowd. In front of cameras. That's a problem." Malik took a step closer. "Your brother was harassing a mother and her kid. That's the problem." Richie chuckled, shaking his head. "You still don't get it. This isn't about right or wrong. It's about power. And now, everyone thinks you have more of it than me. That's not good for business." Malik's fists clenched. "Then let's settle it. You and me." The room went silent. Even Dre tensed beside him. Then Richie laughed. A deep, genuine laugh. "You think this is a street fight? That this ends with fists?" His expression darkened. "No, Malik. This ends with blood." Before Malik could react, the doors burst open behind him. Armed men. At least a dozen. Dre cursed under his breath. "Told you this was suicide." Malik's jaw tightened. He had walked right into a trap. Richie leaned forward, his smile cold. "You should have run when you had the chance." Malik's mind worked fast, scanning the room for a way out. 12 armed men, all blocking the exits. Richie had planned this well. Too well. Dre shifted beside him, voice low. "We should have brought more guys." Malik smirked. "You mean we should have brought guns?" "That too." Richie swirled his whiskey, watching them like a man who already knew the ending of a movie. "I respect you, Malik. Takes guts to walk in here. But now you're in my world. And in my world." Malik didn't let him finish. He exploded into action, grabbing the table and flipping it straight into Richie's lap. Glass shattered, whiskey spilled, and in the confusion, Malik drove his fist into the nearest goon's throat. The man staggered back, choking, as Dre swung wide and cracked another across the jaw. The room erupted into chaos. Gunfire rang out, but Malik was already moving. He grabbed a chair and hurled it, knocking a gunman sideways. Dre tackled another to the ground, pounding fists into his ribs. Richie's men weren't used to real fights. They were used to intimidation, to people running when they pulled their guns. But Malik, he was different. He had spent years training, years in the cage. These guys were slow, predictable, and right now they were scared. He ducked a swing, drove an elbow into another's nose, and snatched the pistol from his grip. Before the man even hit the ground, Malik turned and fired. 2 shots, both into the ceiling. Silence. Everyone froze, except for Ricci, who was still struggling to get out from under the flipped table, his once pristine suit now drenched in alcohol. Malik stepped forward, gun steady. You wanted power, Ricci? Well, right now I'm the one holding the gun. So let's talk. Ricci's expression was unreadable. His men, disarmed and humiliated, glanced at each other, waiting for his order. Then Ricci did something that made Malik's stomach twist. He smiled. You think this is over? Ricci asked, voice eerily calm. You're not walking out of here alive. Malik's grip on the pistol tightened. That's so, because from where I'm standing, a single gunshot interrupted him. It wasn't from his weapon. Dre grunted beside him, staggering back. A bloom of red spread across his shirt. Sniper! Dre gasped, clutching his side. Malik turned just in time to see a shadowed figure on the upper balcony, rifle still aimed. Ricci's laughter filled the room. I told you, this isn't a street fight. It's a war. More footsteps thundered toward them, reinforcements. They were surrounded. Malik's heart pounded. He had come to end this, but now? Now he wasn't sure they were getting out at all. Malik's pulse thundered as Dre staggered beside him, blood seeping through his fingers. The sniper had a perfect shot. If they didn't move fast, this fight was over. Ricci adjusted his suit, completely unfazed by the chaos. You should have stayed out of my business, Malik. Now, you're just another lesson. Malik ignored him. His mind was locked onto one goal, getting Dre out alive. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and boxed in. But he wasn't the type to accept defeat. Dre gritted his teeth. We need a way out. Now. Malik scanned the club. There, an emergency exit near the back, past the bar. The problem? Ricci's men were blocking the path, and they were done playing. Guns were drawn. Triggers itched. Malik whispered to Dre, Can you still fight? Dre let out a pained chuckle. I ain't dead yet. That was all Malik needed to hear. Without warning, he grabbed the nearest bottle off the bar and launched it at the sniper's perch. Glass shattered, buying them precious seconds. Then he moved, fast and brutal. He lunged at the closest thug, disarming him with a swift strike to the wrist before flipping him over the bar. A gunshot rang out, too close, but Malik ducked, driving his knee into another attacker's stomach. Dre, despite his wound, fought like a man possessed. He sent a stool crashing into 2 gunmen, buying them more space. Ricci cursed. Somebody killed him. Malik grabbed Dre and made a break for the exit. A bullet whizzed past his ear, but he didn't stop. He shoved the emergency door open, dragging Dre into the alley. The cool night air hit them like a shockwave. Car's 2 blocks down, Dre gasped. Can you make it? I should be asking you that. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had called the cops. Ricci's men wouldn't want that kind of heat. It was now or never. Malik threw Dre's arm over his shoulder and pushed forward. Footsteps pounded behind them. Ricci's men weren't giving up. Then, salvation. A familiar black SUV screeched to a stop at the alley's exit. The back door flew open, and a voice called out, Get in! Malik didn't hesitate. He shoved Dre inside and dove in after him just as the tires screeched against the pavement. The driver, a friend Malik hadn't seen in years, grinned through the rearview mirror. Still getting yourself into trouble, huh? Malik exhaled, his body finally relaxing. You have no idea. As they sped away, Ricci's men faded into the distance. For now, they were safe. But Malik knew this wasn't over. Ricci would want revenge. Dre winced, clutching his side. So what now? Malik stared out the window, jaw tight. Now, we finish this. He wasn't going to keep running. He wasn't going to hide. Ricci had started this fight. But Malik Carter was going to end it. Black MMA fighter takes on bullies at a grocery store to help a single MOM. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more intense and gripping content. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. What would you have done in Malik's situation? Stay tuned for more powerful stories coming your way.